The October wind cuts through the San Francisco streets like a blade wrapped in ice. Dead leaves skitter across the cracked pavement in front of the Belmont restaurant, their edges curled and brittle. The sun is bleeding out behind the skyline, casting the sidewalk in shades of amber and shadow. A girl lies motionless on the concrete. Emma Calabrese is 7 years old. Her hair is dark, spread across the pavement like spilled ink. Her lips are turning blue. Her small chest is not rising. Her small chest is not falling. 3 feet away, a man in an $8,000 suit jacket is on his knees. Luca Calabrese is 6'2", broad-shouldered, with dark hair silvered at the temples and eyes the color of a winter storm. A thin scar runs from the corner of his left eye down to his cheekbone, a reminder of a betrayal from 15 years ago. He wears a white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, and his gold Patek Philippe watch catches the dying light as his hands shake over his daughter's chest. His hands. The hands that signed death warrants with a pen stroke. The hands that controlled every kitchen, every back room, every whispered deal in San Francisco. Those hands are trembling uselessly. 2 men stand frozen beside him. Vinny, broad-faced and scarred across the knuckles, and Gino, tall and narrow, with a tattoo of a crown creeping up his neck. Both have their hands hovering near their weapons. Both are absolutely helpless. Passers-by have stopped. Maybe 12 people. They form a loose circle around the child, staring, phones raised, but no one moves forward. No one knows what to do. The silence is complete. Not even traffic. Not even wind. Just the sound of Luca's breathing, ragged and desperate. Then the crowd parts. A woman in stained green scrubs pushes through like she is moving water. Her hair is pulled back in a tight bun that has not been combed with care in weeks. She is thin, not fashionably thin, but the thin of someone who skips meals. Her hands are calloused, her nails cut short and broken, and she has flour dust on her collar from wherever she was before this moment. She looks to be in her late 20s, but her eyes carry the weight of someone much older. Those eyes are sharp. Those eyes are clear. She drops a plastic container of leftover food onto the pavement. The container clatters. Plastic lids scatter across concrete. She does not ask permission. She drops to her knees beside Emma and checks the girl's airway with movements that are practiced, certain, automatic. She tilts the head back. She opens the mouth. And she sees it, a piece of hard candy, lodged deep in the throat, catching the light like a tiny jewel. Sofia Hartley pulls her fist back. She delivers a sharp, precise punch to Emma's upper back. The sound is terrible. Bone on bone. Luca flinches as if the punch landed on him. She punches again between the shoulder blades with controlled force, the kind of force that comes from knowing how to hurt, from training, from the desperate knowledge that this is the only thing between life and nothing. She flips Emma onto her back. Her hands, those broken-nailed, calloused hands, lock together just below Emma's ribs. She performs the Heimlich with strength that surprises everyone watching, pushing upward with her entire body weight. Once. Twice. The candy flies out of Emma's mouth and skitters across the pavement. Emma gasps. Emma coughs. Emma breathes. The sound of that breath is the loudest thing anyone has heard. It fills the entire street. It fills the sky. Sofia holds her fingers to Emma's neck, counting her pulse aloud. 78, she whispers. 80. 82. That's good. That's very good. Her voice is barely a whisper, trembling like a candle in the wind. She looks up at the man in the $8,000 suit. She looks directly into his storm gray eyes. She needs a hospital, Sofia says. Now. Then she stands. Her legs are shaking. Blood is dripping from her knuckles where she punched the concrete instead of just the child's back. She picks up her container of leftover food from the pavement. The container is cracked now. The food is spilled. She walks away. She disappears into the crowd before Vinny can react. Before Gino can move. Before Luca can say a single word. She is gone like she was never there at all. Luca is holding his daughter against his chest. Emma is coughing, her small body heaving with the effort of breathing. Her lips are returning to their natural pink. Her eyes are fluttering open. She is alive. She is alive because of a stranger in scrubs with broken fingernails and a container of leftover food. Luca does not move. He does not lower his eyes. He simply watches the space where Sofia was standing, his daughter breathing in his arms, alive, saved by a woman he will never see again. "Who was that?" he asks. His voice is like thunder. Like an oath. Like the word final. Vinny shakes his head. "No idea, boss." Gino touches his ear, speaking into the communication device hidden there. "Get me everything. Street cameras, witnesses, license plates. I want to know who that woman is. I want to know her name. I want to know everything." But Luca already knows something that neither of his men understands yet. In 15 years of managing his empire, in 15 years of making men weep and beg and surrender, no one has ever acted from mercy. No one. Mercy is weakness. Mercy is death. Except this woman. This nobody in scrubs. This ghost walking through his city with flour dust on her collar. Before we continue, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back to the beginning, to understand how Sofia Hartley came to be carrying a container of leftover food on that October evening, and what desperation costs when mercy is all you have left. 18 hours earlier, at 5 in the morning, Sofia's alarm did not go off. Her phone died. The battery had been flickering red for 2 days, but she could not afford a charger because every dollar was already allocated. Already promised to someone else. She wakes at 5:23, jolted upright by the sound of a door slamming in the apartment above hers. The ceiling is water-stained. The paint is peeling. The window looks out onto a fire escape and another building's brick wall covered in graffiti. The graffiti says names and dates and a few words in Spanish that Sofia cannot quite read but which sound like prayers. She counts the money in her wallet. $34. $34 is all she has left until her shift at the Belmont Care Home ends on Friday. $34 needs to cover food for 4 days, the bus pass she will need to get to work, and one emergency. The one emergency is a letter that arrived yesterday from Douglas Hale, her landlord. The letter is folded on the table beside her bed. The letter says $125,000 in 7 days or eviction. Sofia does not read the letter again. She has memorized every word. She stands. The apartment is cold. The heater has been broken since August. She wraps a blanket around her shoulders and looks in the mirror. The girl looking back at her is someone else. Dark circles. Hollow cheekbones. Eyes that have forgotten how to be young. She is 29 years old. She looks 45. She splashes water on her face from the sink in the corner. The water is cold. The apartment is so small that the sink is 12 feet from her bed. She counts 6 steps to get there. She knows this because she has counted it 1,000 times. She changes into her care home uniform, a green scrub top that is faded from 47 washings, and green pants that have a small hole at the knee that she keeps meaning to sew but never does. She pulls her hair back. She brushes her teeth with the bristles of her toothbrush worn down to nubs because she cannot afford a new one. At 6:15, she leaves the apartment. The stairs smell like mold and old cooking. The landlord, Douglas Hale, lives on the ground floor in an apartment twice the size of hers. She can see into it as she passes. His apartment has real furniture. A flat-screen television. A leather couch. The letter on her table promised he would have her belongings on the street in a week if the rent does not appear. The October air is cold on her face. The bus stop is 3 blocks away. The bus will take her to the Belmont Care Home, where she works night shifts, 12 hours at a time, in a facility that houses 37 elderly residents who need bathing and feeding and help with basic dignity that the state pays the care home to provide but somehow does not reach the people actually doing the work. Sofia does not ride the bus. She walks. Walking takes an hour. Riding the bus costs $2.50. $2.50 is a meal. $2.50 is the difference between her having $34 and having $31.50. The walk takes her through neighborhoods where the buildings get older and the streets get wider. She passes a Vietnamese restaurant where men are unloading boxes of vegetables from the back of a truck. She passes a laundromat where a woman is folding clothes that do not belong to her, clothes that other people will reclaim when they have enough quarters. She passes a church with a sign that says, "All are welcome." Sofia has never been inside. She reaches the Belmont Care Home at 8 in the morning. The building is a 4-story structure painted an institutional shade of beige. A sign out front says, "Where dignity meets care." Inside, the lobby smells like antiseptic and something else. Something like death held at arm's length. Something like the end of things. Her manager, Evelyn Blackwell, is sitting at the desk in the main office. Evelyn is 53 years old, wearing a grey pantsuit that costs more than Sofia makes in a month. She has blonde hair that has been expensively highlighted to look natural, and a smile that appears and disappears like a light switch. She is not smiling now. "You're late," Evelyn says. She does not look up from her computer. "The bus was delayed," Sofia says. "You look tired." "I'm fine." Evelyn finally looks at her. Her eyes move across Sofia's face like a blade. "You're not fine. You look like someone who has given up. You understand that affects the residents, don't you? They can sense desperation. They can sense failure." Sofia does not respond. Responding will make it worse. Evelyn stands and walks to Sofia. She is taller by 4 inches. She smells like expensive perfume and something sharp underneath. "I have a job for you today. Room 304. Mr. Heisenstadt. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. His family wants him on suicide watch, but we don't have the staff. So you're going to sit with him for the next 4 hours and convince him that life is worth living. You're getting paid the standard rate, which is $14 an hour. But I'm telling the payroll department to deduct $5 an hour for the uniform you're wearing. Our uniforms cost money to maintain. So you'll actually be receiving $9 an hour. You understand?" Sofia understands. Sofia always understands. "Yes," she says. "Good. And Sofia? When you collect meal trays today, I want you to be mindful of the tips. Last week you reported only $42 in meal tray gratuities. That seems low to me. The residents love you. I would expect more gratitude." The residents do not tip Sofia. The residents' families sometimes leave $1 or $2 on the tray. Evelyn takes half. Sofia goes to room 304. Mr. Heisenstadt is 84 years old. He is lying in bed, facing the wall. He has not bathed in 4 days. His hair is matted. His fingernails are long and yellow and curved like bird claws. "Mr. Heisenstadt," Sofia says quietly. "My name is Sofia. I'm going to sit here with you for a little while." He does not respond. She pulls a chair beside his bed and sits. The chair is plastic and uncomfortable. She settles into it anyway, and she begins to speak. She talks about small things. The weather. The view from his window. The sound that the pigeons make when they land on the fire escape outside. She talks for 45 minutes without him saying a single word in return. Then he speaks. "My grandson doesn't visit anymore," he says. His voice is like gravel. "He used to visit on Saturdays. Now he doesn't come." "I'm sorry," Sofia says. "He said I was too sad. He said being around me made him feel depressed." Sofia reaches over and takes his hand. His hand is thin and fragile, like holding a bird's wing. "You're not responsible for his feelings," she says. "You're only responsible for yours." He turns to look at her. His eyes are the color of faded denim. "Are you sad?" he asks. Sofia does not answer for a long time. "Yes," she finally says. "But I'm still here." He holds her hand tighter. "You're still here," he repeats. And then he sits up, very slowly, and asks her to help him bathe. It takes 2 hours. She washes his hair. She cleans his fingernails. She changes his sheets. When she is finished, he eats the lunch she brings him. Broth and crackers. He eats all of it. At 4 o'clock, her shift is supposed to end. At 4 o'clock, Evelyn appears at the nursing station and tells Sofia that she is staying late because another nurse called in sick. Sofia will receive time and a half for the overtime. But Evelyn will deduct an additional $7 for a facility use that Sofia does not understand. Sofia stays. At midnight, she finishes her shift. She has worked for 20 hours with a 30-minute break. She was paid for 18 hours and 45 minutes. The paycheck, when it comes, will be $197 before taxes. After taxes, it will be $163. After the deductions that Evelyn somehow always finds, it will be $142. The rent is due on the 1st of the month. The rent is $350. That was the number before Douglas Hale's letter arrived. She walks to the Belmont restaurant. It is a high-end establishment where people come to celebrate and to forget. Sofia knows the head chef. She does not know him well, but she knows that on nights when there are leftovers, he sometimes puts containers of food aside by the back door. Tonight there are 3 containers. One with pasta. One with a bread roll. One with a small piece of grilled salmon. She puts them in a bag. She is walking toward the bus stop when she sees the girl. The girl is small. 7 years old. She is wearing a pink coat and her hair is in braids, and she is walking slightly ahead of a tall man in an expensive suit. The girl stops suddenly. She puts her hand to her mouth. And then she crumples. Sofia does not hesitate. She drops the bag and pushes through the gathering crowd. She drops to her knees beside the girl. She checks the airway. She sees the candy. She punches. She saves the girl. And when she stands up, covered in sweat and adrenaline, she looks into the eyes of Luca and sees something she has never seen before in another human being. She sees recognition. She sees the moment when an infinitely powerful man realizes that he is not powerful at all. Sofia picks up her container of leftover food and walks away. She does not know that the girl's name is Emma. She does not know that the man is Luca. She does not know that in saving that child, she has set something in motion that will tear through her life like a hurricane. She only knows that someone needed her, and she did not look away. That night, when she reaches her apartment, she finds an envelope slipped under her door. Inside is a prayer card. The prayer card is old and worn, the edges soft from handling. On the back, in handwriting she does not recognize, are 3 words, "Thank you. Always." Sofia holds the card for a long time, not understanding. She places it on her nightstand beside the eviction notice. She closes her eyes. She has no idea what is coming. 3 weeks earlier, Sofia Hartley stood in the break room of Belmont Care Home, and the fluorescent lights above her head buzzed like dying insects trapped in glass. The smell of antiseptic and overcooked vegetables hung in the air, a permanent stain on everything. Her fingers shook as she sorted through the pile of crumpled bills and loose coins spread across the chipped formica table. Dollar bills, quarters, dimes, pennies. She counted again. $34. That was all that remained from the meal tray tips for the entire week. $34, and rent was due in 6 days. Sofia had been working the night shift at Belmont for 4 years. 6 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock in the morning, every single night. She changed bedpans for residents whose families had forgotten them. She held spoons to trembling mouths. She whispered comfort to people afraid of the dark. The wage was $8.50 per hour. The tips were supposed to be survival. Her phone lit up on the table. 17 missed calls. All from her sister. All about medical bills. Sofia looked at the phone and did not pick it up. She could not hear those numbers again. Her sister's cancer treatment had already drained the small savings account Sofia had built over 3 years. $47,000 gone in 8 months. The hospital was asking for another $70,000 for the next phase of chemotherapy. There was no next phase. There was only debt and the slow collapse of everything she had built. Sofia placed the $34 in an envelope and sealed it. She tucked it into the pocket of her uniform. The pocket was thin. Everything about her was thin now. Her face had grown sharp. Her collarbones stood out like knives. She had stopped buying lunch. She had stopped buying breakfast. She existed on the leftovers she collected from the restaurant dumpsters after midnight, food that had been rejected by paying customers but was still warm, still edible, still something. At 4 in the morning, her manager appeared in the hallway outside the residents' rooms. Evelyn Blackwell was 52 years old, but she carried herself like a woman who had never known struggle. Her hair was platinum blonde, twisted into a perfect chignon. Her reading glasses hung from a chain made of actual gold. Her shoes were Italian leather that probably cost more than Sofia's monthly rent. When she walked, she left the smell of expensive perfume behind her, something with notes of jasmine and threat. Evelyn stopped Sofia near room 204. The hallway was dim, lit only by the nightlight above the nursing station. Evelyn smiled, and it was a smile like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Sofia, dear," Evelyn said, her voice smooth and controlled. "I need to speak with you about the tip distribution." Sofia's stomach tightened. Of course. They walked to the break room. Evelyn closed the door. On the table sat 5 envelopes, each labeled with a night shift worker's name. Evelyn picked up the envelope marked night staff pool and held it up. "This week's tips came to $147, Evelyn said. She opened the envelope and found out the bills. A reasonable sum. For reasonable work. Sofia watched. Evelyn began separating the bills into 2 piles. One pile was large. The other pile was small. Evelyn placed the small pile back into the envelope and slid it across the table towards Sofia. "This is yours," Evelyn said. $37 to be split among 6 workers. That's about $6 each. You should be grateful. I could pay you nothing. The work you do is barely skilled labor." Sofia's hands were shaking. She reached for the envelope. "Actually," Evelyn said, and her voice turned cold, "I'm going to hold on to this for you. For safekeeping. You have a tendency to mishandle money. Your sister's medical bills, your apartment situation. You're not trustworthy with cash. I'll give it to you on Friday." Sofia heard the clock above the stove ticking. Tick. 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 Each second stretched like a small eternity. "Ms. Blackwell," Sofia said, and her voice came out trembling like a candle in the wind, "those tips are supposed to be distributed. It's policy." Evelyn stood. Her face did not change. Her smile remained exactly the same. "Are you accusing me of theft, Sofia?" she asked. Her voice was quiet. Quiet voices were always more dangerous than loud ones. "Because if you are, I need to warn you that insubordination is grounds for immediate termination. And when you leave Belmont, you won't have a reference from me. Do you understand what that means? No one in this city will hire you. Not in healthcare. Not in hospitality. Not anywhere. You'll be unemployable. Your sister will lose her treatment. You'll lose your apartment. Everything will collapse. Is that what you want?" Sofia did not speak. Her hands hung at her sides. "I didn't think so," Evelyn said. I'll see you tomorrow night. She left the room. The smell of her perfume remained, a ghost that would not leave. Sofia sat alone in the break room for 20 minutes. She did not cry. She had learned that crying was a luxury. Crying required energy she did not have. Instead, she picked up the envelope with $6 inside and placed it in her locker. Then she returned to the hallway and continued her shift. Room 204 needed water. Room 208 needed his blood pressure checked. Room 212 was calling for his wife, who had been dead for 7 years, so Sofia sat beside him and held his hand and let him believe she was someone who loved him. At 5:30 in the morning, when the sky was still dark and the city was still sleeping, Sofia was walking through the hallway with a cart of clean linens when she heard it. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy footsteps. Too heavy for a resident. Too heavy for a nurse. The door to the stairwell opened. Douglas Hale stepped through. He was 54 years old and looked like he had been preserved in cigarette smoke. His teeth were the color of old parchment. His fingers were stained yellow from nicotine. His shirt was untucked on one side. He owned the building where Sofia rented her apartment, a cramped one-bedroom on the 3rd floor for $850 a month, an amount that had somehow never been enough. "Sofia," he said, and his voice was the sound of gravel grinding. "We need to talk." Sofia set down the cart. Her heart was already moving very fast. "My office," Hale said. "Downstairs. Now." She followed him down the stairs and into a small room that smelled like ashtrays and desperation. There was a desk covered in papers. There were no windows. Hale sat behind the desk and did not offer Sofia a chair. She stood. "Rent," he said. He pulled out a file. "You were due on the 1st. Today is the 19th. That's 19 days late. This is the 3rd month in a row." "I sent you what I could," Sofia said. "I left a check." "I got the check." It bounced. Hale leaned back in his chair, and it creaked under his weight. "Do you understand what that means?" "It means the check was worthless." "Which means you are worthless." "Which means you need to leave my building." Sofia felt something cold begin to grow in her chest, like a stone sinking into deep water. "Please," she said. "I have money. I'll have more money next week." Hale laughed. It was a sound like a dog barking. "No, you won't. You're a maid at a care home making minimum wage. You'll never have money. And you know what? I don't care. I care about my building. I care about my reputation. And having a tenant who can't pay rent damages that reputation." He opened the file. Inside was a letter on legal letterhead. The words were large and official. Eviction notice. 3 months back rent. $125,000 in damages and fees. You have 7 days, Hale said. 7 days to come up with $125,000 in back rent, damages, and fees. If you don't, I file this with the court. And when I do, I'll make sure no landlord in San Francisco rents to you again. You'll be blacklisted. You'll be on every database. You'll be the kind of person people laugh at. The kind of person who has nowhere to sleep. Sofia stared at the paper. The numbers seemed to move. $125,000. She had $34 in her pocket. The distance between these two numbers was so vast it seemed impossible. It seemed like the distance between the Earth and the Moon. "Do you understand?" Hale asked. Sofia nodded. She could not speak. "Good," he said. "You can go now." She left the office and walked back upstairs. The sun was beginning to rise. The residents would wake soon, wanting breakfast, wanting their medications, wanting to be alive for one more day. Sofia clocked out at 6 o'clock in the morning. She walked to the bus stop. She was still holding the eviction notice in her hand. The city around her was waking up. Cars began to move. People in expensive coats began to walk toward offices and meetings and lives that mattered. Sofia felt like a ghost walking among them, invisible, already erased. She had 2 hours before she needed to sleep. She had nowhere to go. So she walked toward Romano's Italian restaurant 6 blocks away, where the owner sometimes let her collect the leftover food from the closing kitchen, bread that had not sold, pasta that would otherwise be thrown away. The October wind cut through her jacket like a blade through paper. It was the only thing she could afford. It was the only thing that kept her moving forward. She did not know that somewhere in the city, a man named Luca was sitting in a mahogany-paneled office on the 42nd floor, watching the sun rise over the bay. She did not know that his daughter Emma had not slept, that she had a congenital heart condition that made every breath feel like a small miracle. She did not know that today, when she walked past that restaurant, everything would change. Sofia's legs carried her forward through the pre-dawn darkness, her fingers wrapped around a cardboard container still warm from Romano's kitchen. Inside, half a loaf of ciabatta, 3 portions of risotto, a container of minestrone soup that Marco had wrapped with care. She had $6 left. The soup might last 2 days if she rationed it carefully. The bread would be gone by tomorrow. She did not think about next week. Thinking about next week was how people broke. The October wind cut through the city streets like a blade, and Sofia pulled her jacket tighter, the same thin windbreaker she had owned for 4 years, the zipper broken on one side, held together with a safety pin. Around her, San Francisco was waking. Black cars with tinted windows moved past delivery trucks. A woman in a cashmere coat stepped over a sleeping man on the sidewalk without looking down. Sofia knew that coat cost $3,000. She knew because she had cleaned the homes of women who wore coats like that, women who left them draped over Italian marble countertops without thinking. She turned the corner onto 5th Street and saw the crowd forming near the corner cafe. People stood in a circle, phones raised. She heard a child crying, then silence. The kind of silence that meant something was terribly wrong. Sofia did not think. She moved. The crowd parted as she pushed through. On the pavement lay a small girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, her skin already taking on a bluish tint. Her lips were the color of grapes left too long in the sun. A man in an expensive suit stood frozen above her, his face drained of all color. "She's choking," Sofia said, moving beside the child. "Someone get an ambulance." "I called," a woman behind her said. "They're 3 minutes away." 3 minutes. The girl had maybe 90 seconds. Sofia had taken the CPR certification course 2 years ago, before the care home let Evelyn Blackwell steal the certification fee from her paycheck. Before Evelyn convinced the director that Sofia didn't need annual recertification anyway. But the training had stuck in her body like muscle memory, like prayer. Sofia positioned herself behind the girl and wrapped her arms around the small chest. The Heimlich maneuver. First attempt, a sharp thrust upward, between the ribs and the navel. Nothing came free. The girl's eyes went wider, pupils dilating. Her fingers clawed at her own throat. Sofia felt something cold and terrible bloom in her chest. She had 5 seconds left, maybe less. She made a fist and placed it above the girl's navel, gripped it with her other hand, and thrust upward hard. So hard her own shoulders screamed with the effort. So hard she felt something shift inside the small body. A piece of hard candy flew out of the girl's mouth and clattered across the pavement like a stone. The child gasped. Her body convulsed as air flooded her lungs. She coughed and cried and gasped again, each breath a victory, each cry a miracle. Sofia rolled her onto her side in case she vomited, counted her respirations, 17 per minute, elevated but stabilizing, and looked up. The man was staring at her like she had risen from the dead. His face was no longer blank. It was raw, exposed, the kind of vulnerability that usually only happens in private. He dropped to his knees beside his daughter and pulled her close, his expensive suit pressed against her school uniform, not caring about dirt or tears or the way her nose was running. "Thank you," he whispered. His voice was quiet, but it carried something underneath it, something that made the watching crowd step back even further. "Thank you, thank you." Sofia was already moving away. The ambulance would be here soon. They would ask her questions, take her information, and she would become entangled in paperwork and explanations. She could not afford to be entangled. Douglas Hale would notice if she was late returning to her apartment building. He had a way of noticing things, and he had been watching her more closely since the eviction notice. "Wait," the man called out. "What's your name?" Sofia was already disappearing back into the crowd. She did not turn around. She did not answer. She had learned long ago that gratitude was expensive, that being remembered was dangerous, that the safest thing a nobody could do was remain invisible. She walked the remaining 2 blocks to the bus stop with her container of leftovers pressed against her chest like a shield. The sun was beginning to break across the bay, turning the water gold. It was beautiful in a way that made Sofia's throat tighten. Beautiful things hurt. She had learned that too. She boarded the crosstown bus at 6:19 in the morning. Her shift at Belmont Care Home had ended an hour ago. She was running on 4 hours of sleep from the previous day and 7 cups of black coffee from the break room. Her hands were still shaking from the adrenaline, or from hunger, or from both. She was not sure anymore where exhaustion ended and fear began. The apartment building where she rented was on the south side, in a neighborhood where the buildings had not been renovated, where the windows were barred, where families did their best with very little. Sofia climbed the 4 flights of stairs without using the elevator. The elevator had been broken for 6 months, and let herself into apartment 3G. 42 square feet. A bed that was really a cot, a table that held her laptop and her bank statements, a closet that contained 6 outfits. The refrigerator held a bottle of water, 2 eggs, and a container of instant oatmeal. She set down the container from Romano's with reverence and allowed herself to sit on the bed for exactly 7 minutes before she needed to sleep. But she could not sleep. Her mind would not stop replaying the moment the candy flew free, the moment the girl gasped, the moment the man's face transformed from terror into something else. Gratitude. Love. A specific kind of desperation that Sofia recognized because she felt it every day. What she did not know was that the man kneeling on the sidewalk was named Luca Calabrese, and that he controlled 47 restaurants and nightclubs throughout San Francisco, and that his power flowed through the city like water finding cracks in concrete. What she did not know was that his daughter Emma had a congenital heart condition so severe that every day felt borrowed, every breath a negotiation with fate. What she did not know was that a man like Luca Calabrese never forgot mercy, and that in his world, mercy was currency far more valuable than gold. What she also did not know was that when Emma was loaded into the ambulance, her small hand closed around a worn prayer card that had fallen from Sofia's jacket pocket during the chaos. St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes, the image so faded it was almost invisible. Emma clutched it through the entire hospital visit, through the EKG and the oxygen tests and the relief in the doctor's voice that said, "The airway is clear. Her heart is stable. Bring her back in a week." That night, Luca sat in his office above Romano's restaurant, the restaurant few knew he owned, the one with the back booth where delicate business was conducted over untouched plates of osso buco. The office was on the 42nd floor. Windows looked out over the bay. The decor was understated but expensive, mahogany paneling, leather chairs that cost more than Sofia made in a year, a desk so beautiful it looked like art. Emma slept on the burgundy sofa across the room, still wearing the hospital bracelet, her small hand curved protectively around the prayer card. Luca had not moved in 4 hours. He stared at that prayer card like it contained secrets, like it was a map to something he had lost a long time ago. Vinny appeared in the doorway. 42 years old, built like a stone wall, scarred on his left temple from a knife fight in 1998. He had been with Luca for 18 years. He knocked quietly even though the door was open. "We have a name," Vinny said. Luca did not look away from his daughter. "Tell me." Sofia Hartley. 29 years old. Works the night shift at Belmont Care Home, 3 blocks from here. Lives alone in a rental apartment, South 9th Street. supports a younger sister, name is Anna Hartley, currently in St. Mary's Hospital, stage 3 ovarian cancer, surgery scheduled but she can't afford it. Sofia works 2 jobs on top of the care home. She picks up leftover food from restaurants after closing. The office was so quiet you could hear the refrigerator humming in the corner. Luca finally looked at Vinny, and in his eyes was something Vinny had not seen in 15 years. She saved my daughter's life, Luca said quietly. And she left. She didn't want anything. She didn't even tell me her name. No, boss. She just helped. Luca stood and walked to the window. Below, San Francisco spread out like a board game, every light a person with a story, every building hiding 10,000 secrets. He thought about Sofia with her cardboard container of leftovers, her 4-year-old jacket, her hands that knew how to save lives. He thought about a world where people like that disappeared. Find everything, he said. Every debt she has. Every threat she faces. Every person who has taken from her. And then we talk about what comes next. Gino, the second lieutenant, arrived an hour later with his own team. 38 years old, scarred across his knuckles, a problem solver by nature. He listened to Vinny's summary and nodded once. I'll need 3 days, Gino said. You have until morning, Luca replied. By 5:06 in the morning, Gino walked back into the office with a folder. Inside, Sofia's complete financial history. The $125,000 eviction notice. Evelyn Blackwell's systematic theft of tips and wages. Douglas Hale's threats. The unopened medical bills. The surgery costs that climbed higher every week. Luca read through it in silence, his jaw growing tighter with each page. How much for the sister's surgery? He asked. $47,000, Gino replied. Best case scenario. How much does she have? $34. And whatever's in that restaurant container. Luca closed the folder and stood. He walked to the sofa where Emma still slept, this small miracle of a human that had only survived because a stranger with nothing had chosen to act. He touched her hair gently, careful not to wake her. I want to know every detail about Douglas Hale, he said. And Evelyn Blackwell. Everything. Where they live. Where they work. Who they answer to. Who depends on them. What are you thinking, boss? Vinny asked. I'm thinking, Luca said slowly, that the people who did this believed Sofia Hartley was nobody. And I'm thinking that belief needs to be corrected. The October dawn crept across the parking lot of Belmont Care Home like a thief with no intention of leaving quietly. Sofia Hartley stood at the edge of the asphalt, her maid's uniform still clinging to her skin, the smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner locked into the fabric. Her shift had ended at 6 in the morning. She was alive. Her sister was alive. The surgery had worked. 12 hours ago, the surgeon had stepped into the waiting room at St. Mary's Hospital with the words Sofia had been praying toward for 8 months, she's going to be fine. Sofia's hands trembled as she walked toward her car, an ancient Nissan that coughed more than it drove. She hadn't slept. She didn't need to sleep. Sleep was for people whose world hadn't just been remade. Her sister Maria was in recovery, stable, the tumor removed, the pathology report showing clean margins. Clean margins. Those 2 words meant everything. They meant her sister would graduate high school. They meant no second surgery. They meant that the $47,000 that had appeared in a hospital account 3 weeks ago, funds from a source she still didn't understand, had been the difference between life and death. A figure stepped out from behind the concrete pillar near her car. Douglas Hale. His face was skeletal, hollowed out by something worse than hunger. His eyes had the wild shine of a man whose world was collapsing and who had nothing left to lose. He wore a shirt that hadn't been washed in days, and his hands shook as he grabbed her arm. His fingers dug in, skin to skin, the contact like a brand of filth. You think you're clever? His voice cracked on the words. Getting some rich boyfriend to pay your rent? That money was mine. I had plans. I had investors depending on me. Now I've got auditors in my buildings. Federal questions. People asking where the deposits came from. You ruined me. Sofia pulled backward. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't ask anyone for anything. Shut up. His other hand went to his jacket pocket. His fingers moved inside. You're going to call whoever paid that money and get me more. Or I swear to God, I will make sure your sister never sees you again. I will make sure. Silence swallowed the parking lot. A hand, large, steady, belonging to no one she could see, clamped onto Hale's wrist like a vice closing on bone. Vinny emerged from the shadow of the pillar. 39 years old, built like a concrete foundation, his suit the color of midnight. His face was blank in the way that dangerous men's faces become blank when the work is about to begin. Gino appeared on Hale's other side. 38, scarred across his knuckles, moving with the precision of a surgeon. Between them, Douglas Hale looked like a matchstick caught between two stones. You were warned, Vinny said. His voice was flat, without inflection, which made it infinitely more terrifying than if he had shouted. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Hale, you received notice. You stopped contacting this woman. You ceased all collection efforts. You moved on. But you didn't listen. Hale's face went white. The kind of white that happens when blood drains from a human body and leaves only a mask behind. I didn't know. I didn't know she was, who is she? I didn't know. That's not relevant, Gino said. They moved him toward the black SUV idling at the curb. Hale's scream started small and then grew larger, bouncing off the concrete like something alive that refused to die. No. No, please. His voice tore at the edges. I have a family. I have a daughter. I made a mistake. I didn't know she was connected to. The car door opened. Please? I didn't know. The door closed. The silence that followed was so complete Sofia could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear the tick of cooling metal under the sunrise. She could hear the distant sound of the city waking up, indifferent to what had just happened in this parking lot, indifferent to the fact that Douglas Hale had just ceased to exist from her world. Vinny and Gino turned to her. Their eyes held no judgment, no pity. Just assessment. Are you hurt? Gino asked. Sofia shook her head. She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed around all the words. Good, Gino said. This won't happen again. You have my word. The black SUV pulled away from the curb and turned onto the street, its engine barely making a sound. Sofia watched it disappear into traffic. She stood in the parking lot of Belmont Care Home as the sun crested the horizon, turning the sky the color of blood and gold and something that had no name. At that same hour, 400 miles north in a federal building in San Francisco, agents were knocking on Evelyn Blackwell's door. Evelyn had been expecting something. Not this, but something. She'd known for weeks that her perfect life was becoming unstable, that questions were being asked about her finances, that certain transfers of money didn't match her employment records. She thought she had time to clean things up. She thought she could make it all go away with the right attorney, the right amount of money paid to the right people. She was wrong about everything. The FBI raided her home at 5:16 in the morning. 12 agents with warrants and cameras and the kind of authority that doesn't care about designer clothes or country club memberships or how many charity galas you've chaired. They seized her computers. They opened her safe. They found 8 years of evidence, wire transfers of stolen tips from dozens of employees at Belmont Care Home. Falsified documents. Tax evasion. Systematic theft. The case was so clean, so perfectly documented, that by 9 in the morning, Evelyn Blackwell was in federal custody, bail set at $500,000 that she didn't have access to because her assets were frozen. Her social circle, the women she'd brunched with every Thursday, the charitable board she'd orchestrated like a general commanding troops, removed her name from every list. Not quietly. Publicly. A statement released by the Heritage Foundation announced that Evelyn Blackwell had been removed from their board of directors pending serious ethical violations under investigation. Within hours, 3 other organizations followed suit. By noon, she was a pariah. By evening, she was a cautionary tale. Sofia watched the news on her phone, sitting on the floor of her apartment. The footage showed Evelyn being led from her home in handcuffs, her face pale, her designer clothes rumpled, photographers shouting questions she didn't answer. Sofia recognized that numbness in Evelyn's expression. She'd seen it in her own mirror countless times. She should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt like she was standing in a room where someone had just turned off all the lights. That night, Sofia drove to Romano's. She didn't call ahead. She didn't need to. Somehow she knew Luca would be there, in the back booth with his glass of wine the color of old blood, waiting for a world that had changed without him asking for it to change. Luca looked up as she approached. In the candlelight, his scar ran from his eye to his jaw like a river on a map of suffering. He was wearing a charcoal suit, and the white shirt beneath it was open at the collar, showing the edge of his chest. He was 47 years old and looked like a man who had fought wars in languages most people didn't speak. Sofia didn't sit. She stood at the edge of the booth, her hands clenched. "What did you do?" Her voice was barely steady. "I protected what's mine," Luca said. "I'm not yours." He set down his wine glass. The motion was slow, deliberate. "You saved my daughter. That makes you family. And I protect my family." Sofia's hands were shaking. Hale is gone. Evelyn is destroyed. Her whole life is, "You didn't have to do this. I never asked for this." "You didn't have to ask," Luca said. He stood, and the full weight of who he was became visible. Not in violence or aggression, but in something worse. Absolute certainty. Absolute power that had no need to prove itself. "Do you know what they did to you? Hale threatened you every single day. He held your home over your head like a sword. Blackwell stole from you. She humiliated you in front of the people you cared for. They made your life hell because they believed you couldn't fight back. I gave you power. By making them disappear." Sofia's voice cracked on the words. "By making sure they never hurt anyone again. Hale is in a federal cell facing charges for housing fraud across 6 buildings. It will take a jury 40 minutes to convict him. He'll spend the next 20 years remembering the day he grabbed you. Evelyn is answering for 8 years of systematic theft. Federal charges. Prison time measured in decades. I didn't kill them, Sofia. Death is too quick, too easy, too merciful. I gave them time to remember what they did. I gave them time to understand the weight of their choices." Sofia sank into the booth. She put her head in her hands. The candlelight flickered across her face, casting shadows that made her look older and younger at the same time. "I don't know how to accept this," she whispered. "You don't have to accept it," Luca said, his voice softening in a way that made it clear this was a rare thing for him. "You just have to live." What Sofia didn't understand was that this moment, right here, was the moment when Luca Calabrese began the process of becoming someone other than what he'd been for the last 15 years. Because 15 years ago, his own brother, Marco, his blood, his family, had betrayed him for money. Had sold information to rivals. Had chosen greed over loyalty. Luca had been forced to choose between mercy and survival, and he'd chosen survival. He'd had his brother imprisoned. He'd severed the connection between them like cutting a rope attached to a sinking ship. But Sofia Hartley had shown him mercy. She'd saved his daughter without knowing who he was, without calculating what she'd receive in return. And in doing that, she'd cracked open something in him that he thought was permanently sealed. Something that remembered what family was supposed to mean. And he would not lose it again. 1 year after the October sidewalk where everything changed, Sofia Hartley walked into Romano's Italian restaurant carrying a small box wrapped in brown paper. Her dark hair fell loose past her shoulders, and she wore a simple navy dress instead of the white scrubs that had been her uniform for so long. The scar on her wrist, the one Douglas Hale had given her that night he tried to drag her into his car, had faded to almost nothing. She was no longer hollow. She was no longer desperate. She was no longer invisible. Emma ran to her before she reached the booth, 7 years old now, bright and alive and fearless. She wrapped her arms around Sofia's waist. "You came. Papa said you would come, but I wasn't sure because you had to work and the hospital is so far away, Anne." "I always come," Sofia said, and she meant it with her whole body. She kissed the top of Emma's head. "I will always come when you ask." Luca Calabrese watched from his booth, the one that sat in the corner where he could see every entrance, every exit, every threat. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Sofia's yearly nursing school tuition. His dark eyes, the ones that had seen 15 years of violence and betrayal, softened when they landed on her. The scar running from his left eye to his cheekbone caught the candlelight. He stood. Emma pulled Sofia forward. "Come. Papa wants to show you something." The booth smelled like espresso and the faint ghost of cigar smoke that clung to Luca's world like a memory. Sofia slid into the seat across from him. Emma climbed between them, her small body a bridge between two people who had learned the language of mercy late in their lives. On the wall behind the booth, framed in simple glass, hung the worn prayer card. The one that had fallen from Sofia's pocket that October night when she'd performed CPR on a child she didn't know belonged to a man she would come to understand was the most powerful person in San Francisco. The Virgin Mary faced outward, her expression eternally patient, eternally kind. Beneath her image, in faded script, "God protects those who protect the innocent." "I had it preserved," Luca said. His voice was deep and solid like an oath. "I wanted to remember that moment. When Mercy walked into my life disguised as a stranger." Sofia's eyes filled with tears. She did not speak. There were no words for what had happened in the past 12 months. The way Douglas Hale had disappeared from a coffee shop on a Tuesday morning, dragged screaming into a black SUV, later found in federal custody facing charges for housing fraud across 6 properties. The way Evelyn Blackwell had been exposed, every stolen penny documented, every humiliation she'd inflicted on the staff of Belmont Care Home made public. The way those secrets had spread like wildfire through social media, 800,000 views in the first day, 2 million by the end of the week. The scholarship that paid for Sofia's nursing program. The car that replaced her dying 1998 sedan. The text messages that arrived at 11 p.m. when she worked late shifts. "Vinny is outside. He'll make sure you get home safe." The way Vinny and Gino had become her friends, her protectors, her brothers in a family that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with choice. "Your sister is doing well?" Luca asked. "She's in remission," Sofia said. The word still felt like a miracle on her tongue. "She moved here. She's living in the Mission District. She got a job at UCSF Medical Center." "She's?" Sofia paused. "She's alive, Luca. She's really, truly alive." Emma tugged on Sofia's sleeve. "Show Papa. Show him what you made." Sofia opened the brown box. Inside lay a photo album, handmade, leather-bound with pages she'd assembled herself. Each page held a picture from the past year. Emma at her 8th birthday party, eating chocolate cake in Romano's while Luca looked on like a man who had discovered what happiness was. Sofia at her nursing school graduation, standing between her sister and Emma, all 3 of them laughing. A candid shot of Luca reading bedtime stories to Emma, his enormous frame folded into a child's chair, his scarred face illuminated by the soft glow of a nightlight shaped like a moon. Luca opened the album slowly. His jaw tightened. His fingers trembled. This man, who controlled an empire through fear and loyalty codes written in blood, was trembling. "The first time you did something kind, it wasn't to impress me," Sofia said. "It was to make sure Emma knew she was safe. That's when I understood what you were. Not a mafia boss. Not a criminal. A father who would burn the world to keep his daughter safe. I see that man. Every single day, I see him." Luca's men, Marco, Vinny, Gino, the others who filled the restaurant with their quiet presence, pretended not to watch. But they watched. They had never seen their boss like this. Undone. Vulnerable. A statue that had cracked and revealed something human underneath. "I have something for you," Luca said. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Red velvet, the color of wine, the color of roses, the color of everything that mattered. He did not stand. He did not kneel. He simply opened the box and let the diamond catch the light like a star captured in a ring. "Sofia Hartley," he said, and his voice was rougher now, like thunder rolling across a distant horizon, "will you marry me?" Emma gasped. "Papa! You're doing it. You did it." Sofia's hands shook. "You've been alone for so long," she whispered. "I have," Luca said. 15 years since my own brother betrayed me. 15 years of choosing survival over mercy, fear over family. And then you walked into my life and saved my daughter without thinking about who I was, what I could offer you, what you might receive in return. You showed me that mercy doesn't calculate. That love doesn't keep score. That family isn't about blood, it's about the people who choose to stay when the storm arrives." Sofia slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Luca did not make mistakes. The restaurant erupted into applause. Marco stood and raised his glass. Vinny and Gino moved to their table, smiling like men who had learned that joy was possible. Emma jumped up and down screaming, "She said yes. She said yes. We're real family now." Outside, the October wind cut through San Francisco's streets like a blade wrapped in ice. But inside Romano's, where the candlelight danced and the smell of garlic and tomato and basil hung heavy in the air, there was only warmth. There was only safety. There was only the quiet miracle of two people who had learned to choose mercy instead of vengeance, love instead of fear, family instead of blood. This is the truth that the world does not often tell us, that darkness is not defeated by more darkness. That monsters can remember their humanity. That the people we underestimate are often the ones carrying the most courage. Sofia Hartley was nobody when this story began, a night shift worker counting $34 in her pocket, eating leftovers from restaurant trash, dodging an eviction notice with her name on it in bold red letters. She was invisible. She was disposable. She was the kind of person that systems are built to ignore. But on an October night, when a child collapsed on a sidewalk and no one stopped, Sofia stopped. She performed CPR on a stranger's daughter. She chose mercy in a moment when mercy seemed impossible, reckless, foolish. She did not know that child belonged to Luca Calabrese. She did not know her act of kindness would split open a locked door in the most powerful man in San Francisco. What this story teaches us is this: family is not always bound by blood but by those who choose to stay when the storm arrives. If this story reminded you what true loyalty looks like, what real love demands of us, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because tomorrow we bring you another story of power, mercy, and the choices that change everything. Every comment you leave is a precious source of motivation that helps us continue creating the meaningful stories that you deserve to hear. We wish all of you watching this video good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness. No matter how hard life gets, remember that after the rain, the sky always clears. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We will see you again in the next video. Goodbye.